Chapter number 6, Business Ethics and Internal Auditing. So in grade 11, much attention was given to what is meant by ethically correct behavior and how employees should act in specific circumstances and situations. You even drew up your own behavioral policy of your own business undertaking. So in this chapter, we will now look at the disciplinary aspects of ethics and punitive measures that can be applied when the code of ethics is violated. So when you are not doing the ethical thing, what is your disciplinary action to be taken to get you back into line? So last year we also looked at what is internal auditing and what is internal control and who would have an interest in this subject. Now this year we will now concentrate on the composition of an audit report, specifically to do with companies. Companies, remember, according to the Companies Act, all companies, especially those listed on the JSE and those that are public companies, must have an audit done on them every single year. So we're going to look at an audit report by referring to the different components in such a report. So this links up with what you've done in companies. It will also be expected of you to interpret an audit report and to provide comments thereupon. So in other words, you need to be able to tell me which type of audit report this is. We're going to talk a little bit more about that later. Business ethics. So ethics is all about how we must act. Okay, so it's must, in other words, what is expected of us, how we must act, and what our behavior must be like, our behavioral patterns. It also has to do with how and why we must act morally, honestly, and correctly. Now remember, this has to do with business ethics, so this is all to do with inside the business. How am I acting inside the business, in my workplace? What is the good way, the moral, the honest, the correct way in dealing with certain matters? And ethical behavior and conduct is therefore based upon the ability to differentiate between what is right and what is wrong, and also the commitment that we make in order to do the right thing. And that is what business ethics is all about. We have a commitment and an ability to do the right thing. Therefore, we should do the right thing whenever we deal with business, and then that also then will spill over into your personal life. So the purpose of behavior policy is to lead you, guide you, and to support you in identifying the business ethical situation in the workplace. So it is to consider, to understand, and to react in an appropriate manner. Whenever you are confronted with ethical problems, they must be solved in the light of the following 3 steps. So 3 things that you can consider to help you, to guide you towards the ethical behavior. The first thing to do is to analyze the situation. Now when I analyze the situation, I ask myself a couple of questions. I ask myself typically, how did the situation arise? What must be decided? Who can make the decision? Who can take the decision? You, or should it be done by someone else? What will be the implication of this decision? Which written instructions must be consulted? Does existing procedures or policy throw light upon the situation? So is there something that can guide me as to help me to make the correct ethical decision? Who must be consulted? Who must I tell? What is the ethical alternative and rationale for each one? So in other words, the facts and assumptions must be carefully evaluated, and should any of the choices require that an ethical principle shall be the victim, is there any leeway? Can I be a little bit lenient for you to compromise that will not violate the organization's standards and integrity. Again, I'm going to just tell you this is to do with business. So the whole time you have the business's best interest at heart. Finally, would another employee agree with this ethical verdict? So in other words, would someone else agree that you've done the right thing? So my first step is to analyze the situation. My second step is to then think about the possible outcomes. So which outcome would be best from the ethical viewpoint? Best again for the organization, for the business. Who could be hurt and who could be helped by this verdict? To what degree can the person affected be hurt? How can they be helped? In other words, which alternatives would there be to the ethical permissible? Which of the choices identified would minimize the damage the most? In other words, which choice would have the best possible outcome, provide the greatest help, would be most in agreement with the organization's values, and which would protect the rights of those affected the most? So in other words, which possible outcome would be best for everybody? The third question that you then ask yourself is you ask the following questions. Would I be content in telling my family what I have done? Or would I be happy if this were made public? Normally, if you want to keep something in secret, it's not ethically correct. It's the wrong thing. As soon as there's something that you wouldn't mind sharing with the rest of the world, then it's probably the right thing. Because we're more content in sharing the right thing than the wrong thing. So as soon as there's something that you want to keep a secret, that already puts up a red light for you. Would I have regarded it as a reasonable had I been on the other side of the table? Would my peers approve of my conduct? Would my decision still look good a year from now? How about 5 years from now? How about 10 years from now? Would I still agree that I've made the right decision? And then the last and final question you can ask yourself is, would my decision embrace a contravention of law, procedures, and guidelines? In other words, am I doing the right thing lawfully, or is it actually the wrong thing lawfully? As soon as I get into trouble with the law, it's not the ethical correct thing to do. So remember, it is always expected of an employee to apply and maintain certain principles and rules in your workplace. So the following are just basic principles that are acceptable to most professional bodies and are underwritten by all professions. So let's look at a few ethical behaviors. I need to consist or have integrity. Now, integrity can be described as the quality a person possesses to be honest and to demonstrate strong moral values. So a person of integrity will also always strive to carry out tasks assigned to him to the best of his ability. He will set high standards and be determined never to lower those standards. Objectivity. Now, objectivity is the ability to act impartially, honestly, and without any prejudice. So in other words, to stand outside and view in, to not be subjective but to be objective. So a person who is objective will make decisions that is based on facts and who will not allow personal feelings or influences to influence his decisions and recommendations. So in other words, he's not influenced by feelings. He will always be just and unbiased in the execution of his duties and will not be influenced by others. Thirdly, what is your professional competence and proper care? Now remember, you were trained for a specific professional ability or competence. You have a specific professional skill, and these skills need to be done in such a way that it is professional. So professional competence refers to the ability to perform your duties well through having the necessary technical skill, capability, knowledge, and experience. So exercising proper care will ensure that tasks are carried out responsibly, carefully, and promptly. In the fourth place, confidentiality. Now, confidentiality refers to the ability to keep confidential any information affecting the organization that has been revealed to you as an employee in the execution of your duties. So there's certain things that you just don't talk about to other people, such as the finances, such as the salaries of employees, such as the inner workings of the management. Those are things that you keep for yourself. So the information may not be imparted to anyone outside the business unless it is required from you professionally or by the law. Now remember, if I talk about imparted to anyone outside the business, sometimes it can even be expected of you to not even mention it to someone inside the business that is outside of your department, for instance, unless it is something that's telling you to do it according to law. So something is not right, then you can spill the beans because they are actually going against the law. Professional behavior, so there's professional competence and professional behavior. Now, professional behavior refers to the manner in which a person behaves in his workplace. So, in other words, no employee should ever in any way act in a manner that would have a negative impact on the reputation of his profession. So, it's bigger than yourself. It's got to do with everybody that is in the same profession as what you are. Now, a professional will at all times act in a thoughtful, courteous, friendly, and polite manner, and will always be considerate of others as well.